It's kind of like, hey, you're trying. It's not perfect. Everybody can tell that when I speak, but that's okay. I don't speak perfect English all the time either. Sometimes I stumble over words. I'm one of those people that when I start doing something that I really want to do, I will keep doing it. And I mean, it's just like anything else. You don't learn everything all at once. You'll never learn everything, but a step at a time, a day at a time. I would very much like to visit Argentina because I would fit in very well with that style of cuisine because I am very big on using the grill and cooking meat. And I know they like to do the asado, or they do their Sunday barbecues, as we would call them here, and I think it'd be a lot of fun for me. Drinking wine and beer and grilling around a barbecue on a Sunday sounds like a great day for me. Not everything's formal, just like English. Not everything's formal. You can tell about a lot about where somebody's from or what region of the world they're from based on their slang too. It's the same in English. So it's just, don't be afraid to fail. You're gonna get things wrong. Everybody does. And that's the simplest way I can explain it. You're gonna get things wrong. When you get them wrong, write it down. Practice it, look it over, keep practicing it, and ask your teacher if you need more help for exercises, and practice some more. Practice, practice, practice.
Hola a todos. Welcome, everybody. We're back with another episode of Conquering Spanish, the podcast where we talk to our students and we learn what inspires them, what motivates them, and the challenges that they face while learning Spanish. I'm your host, I'm Tanya Roman, and I'm the Student Success Manager at Spanish 55, and I enjoy talking to all of our students and getting to know how they are making authentic connections, and I am very inspired by it all. So today, we have Sean Lally. He is a construction supervisor from Chicago who is a passionate learner, and he is a clear example of why language learning has no finish lines. It's not about the destination with Sean, but about integrating Spanish into his everyday life. So he's been with us for about 7 years, and we are going to listen to his fresh perspective on how to continue, how to push forward, and I'm sure it's going to be very interesting for anybody out there who's feeling stuck or overwhelmed in this journey. So without further ado, I'd like to say welcome, Sean.
Muchas gracias. Hola, me llamo Sean Lally y soy de la ciudad de Chicago. Algunas cosas interesantes sobre mí que no todo el mundo sabe son que soy hijo de inmigrantes irlandeses y que soy un entusiasta de las actividades al aire libre.
Okay, excelente. All right, thank you, Sean. Well done.
Thank you.
So I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into your start with Spanish. You just told us that your family comes from Ireland, right? And how did you begin learning Spanish?
The same way I think just about every American kid learns Spanish. High school, yes.
Okay. And what motivated you to keep on going? Because we know it's part of like the curriculum at high school. You either take French or Spanish, but it usually stops there.
Right.
What made you go on?
The biggest motivator was definitely work, and where I live, Chicago is a city with a very large Spanish-speaking population, and the surrounding areas as well in Illinois. And it's just been indispensable learning the language to help me advance my career and to do a better job serving my customers in the career that I have. That's the professional aspect. The other portion is I've made friends in my industry and outside my industry who speak Spanish, and I've been privileged enough to learn enough Spanish to be able to hold conversations with them, their friends, and actually do a bit of traveling with some of them out of country to Spanish-speaking countries. So it's been indispensable and very, very helpful to be able to at least hold a conversation thus far in Spanish. So that was the big motivator.
Okay, so we're going to dive into these aspects that you mentioned. But first of all, I want to tell you that we admire here at Spanish 55 one of your superpowers, Sean, which is being persistent and having, this lifelong vision of language learning, being a student for about more than 7 years, about once a week is no easy feat. So I'd like you to tell us what keeps you motivated to keep going.
The motivation, I'm one of those people that when I start doing something that I really want to do, I will keep doing it. And I mean, it's just like anything else. It doesn't, you don't learn everything all at once. You'll never learn everything, but a step at a time, a day at a time, I think an hour commitment each week is very reasonable to continue doing. And I have that. Everybody knows, my family, my friends, my appointment, what time, what day. Don't call me, I'm not available. So it's just, I have that spot on my schedule and I stick with it. And it's just like anything else. Some days you're like, oh, I don't want to do it, but it's better for you to have discipline and keep doing it. Just like anything else you want to really strive to achieve.
Wow, that is really important because sometimes we let life get in the way. But if we start, thinking about this lesson or what other lesson that we might want to take as something indispensable in our life, we are going to make time for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. So you mentioned that, part of your motivation for learning Spanish was for your work. Can you tell us a little bit about how it's evolved from when you began taking Spanish to where you are now?
Certainly. In the beginning, I would definitely say it was hard for me to understand people, native Hispanic speakers, especially when they were speaking to me or if they were trying to speak to me or anybody on my crew who was not Spanish speaking. So other times I'd have to call over crew members who were fluent. But as I progressed, I was actually able to answer and ask questions myself, maybe not perfectly, but there was a lot less of a communication barrier where I got to the point where I could comfortably hold a conversation and a lot of disculpa, por favor, despacio, más despacio, por favor. But through it all, it's definitely improved. I can hold adequate conversations. There's definitely a lot more to be learned. And of course, there's different tenses that don't exist in English and they can be confusing, but having a good teacher, especially like I have at Spanish 55, makes a huge difference. And asking your teacher, hey, can you focus on this because I'm struggling with this? Or can you tailor the lesson to include this subject matter as well as what we're learning? So it keeps it interesting for you as well. So that's something I've really enjoyed about the program, and that's helped me advance. Keeping my interest has definitely helped me advance.
Oh, definitely. Besides being interested or keeping you interested, it provides you with vocabulary that you're going to be using all the time, which makes it easier to learn.
Absolutely.
And how have others reacted to the fact that you are making the effort to learn Spanish to communicate with them authentically?
I have not had a negative experience in the sense that it seems to be appreciated, and it's kind of like, hey, you're trying. It's not perfect. Everybody can tell that when I speak, but that's okay. I don't speak perfect English all the time either. Sometimes I stumble over words. So, but it's been very nice. And even outside of work, across the street, I have an older gentleman from Mexico, and he only speaks Spanish. So being able to help him as a neighbor and talk to him and his family has been nice. Being able to meet my neighbors and understand, and they appreciate me making the effort, I feel like, and it seems to be.
That's really nice because, we're currently really isolated, and the fact that you can speak to your neighbors and, form a community around you is very important.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned as well that, Spanish has helped you in your relationships with others outside of work. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. One specific instance comes to mind. One of my best friends, her name is Marla. She's a native of Colombia, so we met at work, and English is her second language, so it was beneficial for me. I was already taking the classes, but it was beneficial for me to start learning it besides work, to be able to communicate with her, help her with work, and build a relationship as friends outside of work. And I actually traveled with her twice now to Colombia for Carnival, so that's been there's been a fun aspect to it, not just business as well. So I enjoyed that too.
Can you tell us a little bit more about one of those experiences, Carnival? I think it'd be wonderful for our listeners to hear you.
Certainly. In the city of Barranquilla, which is on the coast. In Colombia, they have the second biggest party outside of Brazil, and it's also called Carnival, and it's in February, uh, right during Lent, thereabouts, and it's a big party. And I mean, every single day there's different, and everybody in the city seems to know of a different party, a different parade going on, and it's a lot of fun. It's like an open street party everywhere you go, and everybody's friendly, and everybody likes to eat, everybody likes to drink. It's a very good time. There's lots of music, lots of dancing. It's definitely worth a visit if you can make it.
Mm-hmm. And do you think you had a different experience than the one you would have had if you hadn't spoken Spanish?
Absolutely. It was a lot easier to people when you're somebody from the United States and they see you, they just assume, oh, there's probably no chance this guy speaks any Spanish, and they'll try and, communicate best they can. But when you actually speak, or at least make the effort to speak with them in their native language, it's appreciated. And it seems people are more open and warm to you as far as like, oh, yeah, you're definitely welcome to hang out with us and spend time with us. It seems it's a lot easier to integrate into the group.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think they appreciate the fact that you are learning about their culture, their values, and just making the effort overall.
Absolutely.
And so you visited Colombia twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a difference from one time to the other?
Certainly. I was much better able to communicate the second time because it was a few years in between. So I've been practicing my Spanish with Spanish 55 and a couple other tools I use, and holding conversations with my friends. So I was able to improve my Spanish because, as anybody who studies Spanish knows, the basics are the same, but slang and different things are different. So it's good to get those perspectives before you go and get that vocabulary. So not everything's formal, just like English. Not everything's formal. You can tell about a lot about where somebody's from or what region of the world they're from based on their slang too. It's the same in English.
Yeah, definitely. And are you planning any other trips?
Not in the very near future, but hopefully not too far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to learn about the other accents, other slang words, and just get a broader perspective of how everybody communicates.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So with your friend, you traveled, and I imagine you go to gatherings and you communicate back home. How has it been, integrating Spanish with her and your set of friends?
With her, it's been very good. Unfortunately, most of my friends don't have too much Spanish. I have a few Spanish-speaking friends, but it's been helpful. Even just going out with my friends to get drinks or at different restaurants where it's, for example, Mexican restaurants, it's a lot easier to order in Spanish and it's a lot faster. And I actually know what the dishes are, and it's been helpful for my friends because they can say, what is this? What does this mean? And I can explain it because that's another motivating factor for me is I very much enjoy food and different foods. So learning about them and the vocabulary for preparing foods, that's often a topic of conversation in my lessons.
And it's very important to know what you're ordering. Otherwise, you order something that might be good, something that might not be what you're expecting. It'd be an interesting experience, but definitely helps. So what do you like to cook? Because Coach Azucena let me know that you like cooking, right?
Yes. I think I would very much like to visit Argentina because I would fit in very well with that style of cuisine because I am very big on using the grill and cooking meat.
Okay.
And I know they like to do the asado, where they do their Sunday barbecues, as we would call them here. And I think it'd be a lot of fun for me. Drinking wine and beer and grilling around a barbecue on a Sunday sounds like a great day for me. I have picked up a bunch of different recipes for my family for different Irish breads and sweets. So I do baking as well.
Okay, and so Coach Azucena has taught you the vocabulary needed for you to know everything around the kitchen already.
Not everything, but a lot of it, yes. I know what tools I can ask for and how to say I'm going to bake or use the oven. So it's been particularly useful for that, or how I'm going to use the grill or what I need for that. So the vocabulary has been very helpful.
Very cool. Very fun. So hopefully we'll you'll get your chance to go to Argentina, and maybe we'll have you back on another episode so you can tell us how it goes and how you used all that vocabulary, Sean.
Hopefully.
Yes. So now I'd like to go a little bit back towards when you began with Spanish 55. How did you decide that, Spanish 55 was going to be where you continued your learning journey?
Well, I knew that I needed a teacher, a native speaking teacher, somebody fluent. And there's people around here, but it's much more convenient to do at home. So I started looking through reviews and everything else on Google. And Spanish 55 kept coming up every time, and looking at the reviews and how it was structured, I really liked it. And there was the chance for a free trial, and I said, you know what? I'll try a few lessons and see how I like it, and we'll go from there. And it was my kind of learning, one-on-one, and very set up a perfect way for me.
Okay, wonderful. And, you began with Coach Alberto, and now you are with Coach Azucena. Besides the tailoring of lessons and her giving you vocabulary for cooking, for your hobbies, is there anything else that you particularly enjoy from your sessions?
I mean, I've been with my coach for however many years now. It's a long time. So it's become like a person that's almost like talking to a friend every week rather than just a teacher. We have a great relationship. So I've learned about her family. She's learned about my family, different experiences, and it's been helpful to integrate that into the lessons. And she'll use real world examples of what's happened in her life or my life and integrate it into the lesson. And I really enjoy that. It's a very nice personal touch. And it's been, like I said, more than just a business or paying for a lesson. It's like talking to a friend on the phone.
Gosh, and that makes learning so much more enjoyable, right? I think I've already asked this in a way, but how have you faced the challenges besides the mindset that I want to go into a little bit in a couple of minutes? Any other thing that you tell yourself when the verb tenses get hard or you see the subjunctive or something else?
Well, one thing that really helps me these days, especially, is I'm not in high school anymore, so I don't have to worry about a test. People make mistakes, and you might use the wrong tense, or you might not use your verbs correctly in a sentence, and that's still okay. The message, most times, it's the same way in English. I might not understand exactly what you're trying to say, or I understand it well enough to answer your question. So it's just, don't be afraid to fail. You're going to get things wrong. Everybody does. And that's the simplest way I can explain it. You're going to get things wrong. When you get them wrong, write it down, practice it, look it over, keep practicing it, and ask your teacher if you need more help for exercises, and practice some more. Practice.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, yes. Get over the fear of speaking and making mistakes. And you mentioned something very interesting that in English, when we speak English, we make mistakes too. I don't think anybody speaks a perfect language, and we often, forget about that.
For sure. I mean, I can almost certainly say there's times when I'm speaking, and especially when I'm writing, I'm not using things correctly, and I'm probably making all kinds of typically not spelling errors anymore with our lovely spell check, but even so, you be using the wrong spelling of a word, and English is even trickier that way. So it's I can tell you right now, there's plenty of emails I get on a daily basis that are very poorly written, and those are by native English speakers, and some of them are mine too.
So I think we can all remember, just get out there and do it.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you remember the first person that you spoke Spanish with after a couple of lessons?
My friend Marla.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it was a safe spot, what I would say.
Safer. I wasn't too long after that, she had a party, and she's like, he's taking Spanish. And then everybody started talking to me in Spanish rapid fire. I go, I'm taking Spanish. I go, I'm not quite there yet, but they started asking me questions slower and explaining things to me. So it's been good that way.
Okay. So before I ask you about, what other tools you use besides Spanish 55, I'm going to go back to your mindset. And the reason why I want to go back to this is because we all lead very busy lives. And we might, have it on our schedule, on our calendar, but sometimes life gets in the way. And you told me that you tell everybody not to call you, and everybody knows that you are, programmed to have your lesson. But how do you actually sit down and take your lesson?
Well, these are particularly helpful. Definitely having a good set of headphones if you're in a loud environment. And the other thing is, I will actively try to schedule things around this day. So I will take time out of my week and I'll look through my calendar beforehand. And I know this is the time that I'm going to be sitting down, and with the exception of emergencies or something comes up, I'm going to be sitting in this chair. I'm going to be taking my lesson. And I know that's not always easy for people. Some people have different schedules. But the one thing anybody who's asked me before, they go, well, how do you do it? I go, just take 1 hour away from your phone or 1 hour away from the TV. And I don't mean to preach, but take 1 hour away from what you just be doing idly scrolling, and take the time to sit down. That's all you got to do. And it's not that hard.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It's just 1 hour out of 24. And if you multiply that by 7, it's even less. So I think what you just mentioned will be useful to many of our listeners who maybe don't know if they can actually, book one lesson a week. But if it's just a matter of being aware of our calendar, and I think it's something very useful that you said, do not book anything around this day, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, wonderful. And so besides Spanish 55, do you read any books? Do you listen to movies? Do you do anything else on your own time to continue learning?
I do occasionally listen to music in Spanish on Spotify, and I'll use the lyrics, and then I'll look it up, and especially if it's a catchy song, I'm like, I wonder what I'm singing. So I'll go through,
Okay.
I'll go through and look at the lyrics. So that's I would like to get a few more. They have these really well done books that we used to have in high school, and I think they still have them now, where they'll take English and Spanish side by side in the same book, so you can read the passage, and then you can see it here and go back and forth, because I find that very helpful to have the comparison, and it just helps me associate words together. And that's huge for me, is, pairing this word with this word, and then the more repetition, the more often you see it, you remember it.
Mm-hmm. That's very useful, because sometimes our students and I'm sure other people out there wonder how else they can improve, and having it side by side is a great tip. Have you used Rosetta Stone or any other app?
I have used Rosetta Stone, and I need to get back to it. I was doing about a half an hour a day on that. There is also a wonderful website called SpanishDictionary.com. And for a few dollars, I think you can get premium. And it's one of the most helpful tools I have, because it not only will give you all the verb tenses and everything else, it'll give you examples, and it'll even make flashcards and games for you to practice. So that's been very helpful.
Ooh, that's very, very helpful. And so you combine that with the vocabulary that you learned with Azucena.
That, and I also have a book that I think everybody should have, 501 Spanish Verbs, and it's very well bookmarked. And it has all the tenses as well, but it's just practicing, and just focusing on especially very common verbs like ir or estar, or any of the verbs that are common in English, like to be, both of them, ser, estar, ir. I mean, just verbs you use every day in everyday conversation, and practice those until they're in your head as often as possible.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And besides, sometimes those verbs, we use them to create other tenses. So that's a wonderful tip. And I'm sure that our listeners, actually, could you tell us what the book is? Because I think you only showed it. And for those on Spotify, I think it would be helpful.
So it is called 501 Spanish Verbs. This is the 8th edition. It is by Christopher Kendris and Theodore Kendris. And it's from Barron's Foreign Language Guides.
Okay, awesome. Very good. We'll make sure to also put it in our show notes, so that anybody who's interested can go and search for it online. Awesome. Very good. So are there any other tips that you would like to share, Sean, with our learners?
When it gets frustrating, push forward and don't give up, and don't be afraid to stop your teacher and ask questions and go over things. If it takes you a couple times to get it, don't get frustrated, because I had I had problems sometimes where I would get frustrated, but it's not your first language. You're good. Again, you're going to stumble. You're going to have a hard time occasionally. It's just part of the learning process, but don't give up. Just keep trying. That's the best advice I have, really.
Okay, perfect. And sometimes it's, the advice that is so evident that we lose sight of it all.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, Sean. So would you like to leave Azucena a special message or say hi to her?
I'd like to say hi and thank you for all your effort and all your time in teaching me. You're a wonderful teacher, and I always look forward to our lessons.
All right. So thank you so much, Sean. I think what you mentioned was very helpful, and I'm sure our listeners are going to take it to heart. And I think you will inspire many to just continue on this road. There's no deadline. It's just for the enjoyment of it all.
Absolutely. And it's a process, and I have no deadline, like you said. I'm going to keep learning as long as I can.
Wonderful. All right. So thank you so much, Sean. And like I said, we hope to have you back here and continue talking about your journey and your next trips. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for our conversation with Sean. His story reminds us that learning a language is not only about the words, but it's also about consistency, connections, and the moments along the way. Thank you, Sean, for sharing your inspiring story and reminding us to embrace the process along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to Conquering Spanish so you don't miss out on our upcoming stories like this one. We've got more inspiring interviews, practical tips, and fun language learning content coming your way. You can also check out Spanish 55's website to book your free introductory call. The link is down below, and make sure to follow us on social media to stay connected. Thank you for listening to this episode, and come back for the next one so we can continue conquering Spanish together.